Deep within Mount Gambier lies a cave filled with mystery and danger. Four divers set out to explore its depths, but little did they know, their adventure would turn into a fight for survival. In this video, we'll look at the chilling incident of the Mount Gambier cave that took place back in 1973. Keep watching, because this story will send chills down your spine. So there's this famous sinkhole in South Australia called the Shaft. It's located under a farm, about a 5-hour drive from Adelaide. Back in the late 1930s, a farmer's horse stumbled into the hole, leading to its discovery. But it wasn't until the 1960s that divers started exploring it and realized just how big it was. In the 1960s, a diver went down for the first time. He was lowered about 23 feet before touching the water, and what he saw down there was like a small lake. Near the entrance, it was narrow, but as he went deeper, it opened up to about 56 feet wide. And on sunny days around noon, sunlight would shine through the opening, creating a beautiful blue light inside the cave. That is how it came to be known as the Shaft. From the water surface, the diver started scuba diving down and found that the cave just kept getting wider the deeper he went. He got down to about 69 feet before deciding to come back up. But from where he stopped, he could see all these rocks at the bottom, looking like a little anthill, and they were still way below him. Later on, they mapped the cave and found a huge chamber with 2 deep tunnels going different ways. One went northwest to 260 feet deep, and the other went down to 407 feet. These tunnels might even stretch to the southern shores as part of a big water system. Plus, there are cliffs and overhangs inside, making it even more interesting. Now, fast forward to May 26, 1973. A group of 8 divers arrived in Mount Gambier, South Australia, all set for some cave diving at the Shaft. Among them were John, Peter, Christine, Glenn, Stephen, Larry, Gordon, and Robert. So the next day, they lowered a rope down to 150 feet and had a successful dive. They aimed to reach what's called the perimeter, about 250 feet deep. This is where the light from above starts to fade away. Any deeper and the angle of the cave ceiling blocks out the light, making the water almost completely dark. So 2 days after they got there, on May 28th, the group of divers went back down to the rock pile at the bottom of the main chamber. Now, here's where things got tricky. The divers didn't originally plan to explore beyond the rock pile. That area was usually considered a safe spot for recreational diving. At first, everything seemed fine. But then, one of the divers, Robert Smith, started feeling a bit off because of something called nitrogen narcosis. It's like feeling a bit dizzy or confused underwater. Robert wanted to head back to the main chamber, but to his surprise, the rest of the group decided they wanted to keep exploring deeper. So, Robert ended up alone in the main chamber for about 10 minutes until Glenn Millett came back from the deep. Together, they headed back up to the surface. When they got there, Larry Reynolds had already come back and Peter Burr surfaced shortly after. But they realized something was wrong. They knew the other divers would be running out of air soon. Glenn Millett put on another tank and went back down to where the main chamber met the northwest tunnel. There they found Stephen Millett's flashlight, but there was no sign of the other 4 divers. After Glenn Millett realized the others were lost, he knew they were in big trouble. The water had gotten all murky, making it nearly impossible to see anything. It was heartbreaking to realize that John Bachman, Gordon Roberts, Stephen, and Christine Millett were lost. Glenn knew there was no way they could still be alive down there. He had to go through a process called decompression and head back up to the surface. It must have been incredibly tough for him to leave them behind, knowing they were still down there. During a police interview later on, Larry Reynolds, one of the divers, said that before he left, he saw Christine Millett and Gordon Roberts trying to find a way out. But instead of going back the way they came, they ended up swimming into a dead end with no way out. At the same time, another diver saw John Boachman swimming in the wrong direction, desperately trying to find an exit. The day after the accident, on May 29th, the police underwater recovery squad went back into the cave to search up to a depth of 200 feet, but sadly, they didn't find anything. They tried again the next day, but still no luck. At that point, the police knew they had a tough job ahead. They needed more training to handle the situation properly, So, for the next 8 months, they focused on getting specialized training from the Royal Australian Navy. It wasn't until January 22nd, 1974, that they were ready to make another attempt at recovering the bodies. The next phase of the recovery started when a documentary film crew got permission to go into the cave. They dove down about 50 feet using special lights to see. As they went into the northwest tunnel, one of the crew members noticed something behind them. It turned out to be a body in a wetsuit. They quickly turned the light away and went back up to tell the police what they found. The next day, the police went back into the cave with the help of the film crew. They followed the crew's directions and found Stephen Millett's body under a sloped part of the cave called the Kevin Roof, where the northwest tunnel meets the main chamber. The police got to work right away to bring Stephen's body out of the cave. After almost 8 months since the tragedy, Stephen Millett was the first one to be brought out from the dark depths of the cave. Even though the police divers went back into the cave to search again, they didn't find anything new that day. Then, on March 9, 1974, a recovery team went back in with better equipment. They dived down to about 185 feet and found Christine Millett and Gordon Roberts' bodies just 20 feet apart. A bit further down the tunnel, they found John Boschman's body. 2 days later, on March 11th, they brought Christine Millett and Gordon Roberts' bodies out of the cave. But John Boschman's body was deeper down in the cave, so it took a bit longer to get to him. Over the next few weeks, they made several attempts to bring John's body out. But because it was so deep, they had to be careful about something called nitrogen narcosis, which can make you feel dizzy or confused underwater. Sadly, each attempt failed. Finally, on April 7, 1974, divers went back in to find John's body and get it ready to be brought out. And on April 9th, almost a year after the disaster, they finally brought John Boschman's body out of the cave. Yet Stephen's last moments remain a mystery. He was found higher up, clinging to the ceiling instead of the bottom like the others. When they found him, his buoyancy device was inflated, which kept him stuck to the roof. It's possible that in the darkness or silt, he tried to find a way out by floating to the ceiling and crawling along it. Maybe he ran out of air before reaching safety, but since no one saw him, we'll never know for sure how it happened. This accident seems to be the worst ever in cave diving. Before this, there were some other deadly accidents in nearby sinkholes. Luckily, after the Cave Divers Association of Australia (CDAA) and other groups were set up, the number of deaths during cave dives went way down. And with that, we've come to the end of this tragic story. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more. Thanks for watching.